welcome to another episode of the IBC Guys. I'm Dave, and if you're watching, you can tell Mike's not here. I feel like we've been a day late and a dollar short, as the saying goes. So, scheduled to do our next podcast, and if you've been listening, if you listen to several of the previous ones, Mike and I have an ongoing bet that when his dog has puppies and my family comes out to visit, he's betting that my family will leave with a puppy. I'm betting that we will not leave with a puppy. I bring that up because we're scheduled to do our podcast and his dog goes into labor. So he and his wife are delivering puppies, which leaves me to kind of punt and figure something else out, which is great. I did make Mike promise that he is not bailing on the podcast. He has promised that he will be back. I know that's why most people listen. I tell that to him often. He does not like it. But no, the podcast is just better with two people talking back and forth, trying to explain the same thing differently. But anyway, he'll be back next week. But I do want to take the opportunity to talk about something that I often talk about with clients. And that is the question, how many policies should I have? So we'll jump into that here in a second, but I want to go through the podcast stuff. First, this podcast exists to get the information about IBC out to people. We would much rather you make an informed decision, yes or no, for IBC, having an understanding of what it is, rather than just going through life and never having heard about it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to give applicable, tangible, implementable examples. How can these things be used? And a lot of times that's dependent on the individual. So really the question is not, can IBC fit into what I'm doing? The answer, kind of like Jeopardy. The answer is, how is it going to fit in? And that's what Mike and I enjoy doing, is talking through those things. So again, it's not a matter of if, it's how, and we want to make sure we give examples as to what that looks like. The third thing is we want to get this out to as many people as we can. So if you would share, like, subscribe. If you watch YouTube and the consistency, everybody's asking you to do that, I'll do the same. It just helps spread the word. I honestly have no idea how many subscribers or how many views these. I don't know any of that stuff. But what I do know is that it helps make more widespread this podcast. So if you would share it with whomever, your mailman, I don't know, pick a random person. My wife was sharing it. So we're joining a new gym. She was sharing it with the person signing them up at the gym. I don't know. Share it with people. If you would do that, it would really help us out and we'd appreciate it. We have a phone number, 507-205-2284. My email is dave@familybakingsolutions.com. Mike's is mike@familybakingsolutions.com. Give us a call. We spend pretty much all day, every day talking about IBC. We'd love to add you in there. And I got feedback the other day, like, I don't want to bother you, Dave. Look, y'all, I'm not, I'm not important. It would make my day for whomever to give me a call and say, "Hey, I want to talk IBC." I'm smiling. I'm thinking about my neighbor. My neighbor listened to the podcast and wanted to talk, and I got rattling. I got going. He's like, "Dave, we'll have to schedule a time." I said, "Mr. Doug, you got it." So, Mr. Doug, if you're listening, shout out to you. But I say all that because we enjoy doing this. It's not going to be a bother. We genuinely want to help people. So if you need that extra little nudge of encouragement, to give us a call or shoot us an email, this is it. Please do so. All right. Short and sweet episode again, just like last week. I wanted to actually talk about a topic, though, and I think I already framed the question. How many policies should I have, or should I have? So what happens? The train of thought that I experience in working with people, when I first talk to them about it, there's a good hefty amount of skepticism. Too good to be true. You're a snake oil salesman. This doesn't really do what you say it can do. And then as we continue down the path of understanding and experience, it's almost visible. You can see the light bulb go off. I was doing it with a client the other day, and he looked at me and goes, "Why wouldn't I just consider this as a retirement thing?" Now, let's be very clear. This is not an investment. It is not a retirement account. but will it absolutely set you up for legacy financial success? Yes, it will. So we had that discussion, but to him, that was kind of the light bulb moment. It's fun to see that. But I say that because when that light bulb switch, it's not a question of, do I really want to commit the money to doing this? It switches to, how can I get as much money as I can into these policies? That is the transition. And it is consistent every time that light bulb goes off. That light bulb goes off for different reasons, but the mentality shift is consistent in that, how do I get as much of my money run through this as I can? So please remember, this is not it's not an investment. It is not an and or. What IBC does is it captures money that you're going to spend anyway. I was working with a family that wants to redo their flooring, and they were paying monthly, and they did not have their entire year paid up. Well, they wanted to do their floors. So we got to discussing the situation. How can we best leverage this? And the thought occurred that let's pay out the year and then I can borrow it. And rather than finance through the flooring company, the floor, I can pay it in full. And then I can pay myself back, all the while having, let's say, $10,000. All the while that $10,000 is making me dividends and interest. This is a key component. And I'm kind of rabbit trailing. I apologize. But when they put that $10,000 in and they borrowed against that cash value, they paid off their floors. Their floors are paid for. But that $10,000 still stayed there, making dividends and interest and a guaranteed internal rate of return. It's called non-direct recognition. So it's unlike a savings account. When you take the money out, the savings account goes down. This is not that. The money stays there, and yet they still were able to go pay for their flooring. So once your brain wraps around that idea, it's not do I want to commit my money? That's not the question. The question becomes, how can I run as much of my money through these as I can? So when that transition happens, we get to the topic of this podcast. How many policies should I have? So this is a fun discussion to have. I think it's a nuanced discussion in that it really depends on the individual. It depends on the family. So here are the two main topics I bring up, and then we kind of have discussions that revolve around it. The first one is the first question of how many policies should I have? The first sub question is, do I just build a giant banking policy? And that absolutely is a great option. So visually, I'd like you to think this going down. Everybody is probably familiar with Chase Bank. When we have some accounts, we run our business through Chase Bank. Chase Bank in downtown Manhattan is a giant skyscraper. I have no idea where it is. It's probably one Central Street, Manhattan, New York. I don't know. Giant building. I'm pretty confident in that. It's going to be a big old building. There's a lot of people there, a lot of activity. There's a lot going on, but it's one building. Transition that. Let's parallel. Let me back up. That giant building is going to be a large banking policy, but it's one policy. You can run a bunch of money through that thing. Let's say millions of dollars. If you do this for 50 years, that is not an absurd amount of money. If you think about them as much money, for my kids, my daughter is 9. In 50 years, she'll be 59. Lord willing, she will live that long. So 50 years is not an absurd amount of money. That policy that we've started when she was 7, that policy, so let's say when she's 57, will be worth millions of dollars, millions, because 50 years of uninterrupted growth is going to occur. Again, Lord willing, if she doesn't pass away. So I say that it's a giant policy. A lot of money can be moved in and out. I don't know to you all, $1 million is a lot of money to me, let alone $2, $3, $4 million. So that policy is a giant policy, just like the building in downtown Manhattan. That's one big policy. Now, I do want you to keep in mind that with that singular policy comes a singular death benefit. So that death benefit grows the more cash premiums that get put in every year. That will grow, and they're supposed to. It's actualized until age 121. But it's one death benefit. So let's say my daughter's, let's keep using her as an example. Let's say her policy is $5,000 a year. It'll get to, let's say, $1 million for nice round numbers. It's a big policy, $1 million death benefit. What can happen is the way we build these policies will start to self-fund themselves. The earliest is 4 years if you want to use some paid up additions methods and things like that with your dividends. If you want to get to the point where just your dividends pay it, it'll be like 8 to 9 years how we build them. But you can, my point in bringing that up is you can set it and forget it. And what that brings in the option of is I can use that same money I was putting into, say, policy A, I can start a policy B, and I can do what I was doing already, but I can start a second policy. The beauty in that is with that second policy comes a second death benefit. So now I have policy A that's been funded for, let's say, 10 years. Now I'm going to build policy B. I'm going to do this, put the same amount of money I was in policy A, but now I have a second policy, policy B. Same amount of money in, but now I have a second $1 million death benefit. So when my daughter passes away, the beneficiary, hopefully my grandkids, that's the way our trust is going to be set up, that our grandkids are going to get not just one death benefit of $1 million, they're going to get two death benefits worth $2 million. But the downside to that is the banking power in each respective building is not as big as the giant downtown Manhattan. Let's go back to our illustration. Manhattan, singular bank, is a giant beast. That baby is gargantuan. I think of my local Chase down the way here. It is not, it's a typical building. I mean, it looks like a bank building, but it is not a Manhattan building. But I have one right there. There's one 5 minutes north or south. There's one directly west, about 6 minutes. And then there's one about 10 minutes directly north. So I have four Chase banks within a 10-minute drive, 10-mile drive. I bring that up because that's like having separate policies. They're all banks. They're just not giant. The banking power contained within them is not as extensive as what is in downtown Manhattan. But they each are a bank. They have property value, the building's worth money. They're just, the banking power within them is not as great as the one downtown. So my hope is that illustration kind of gives you a visual of what I'm talking about. You can build a singular policy to be massive. You could fund that thing for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, pumping money in and out of it. It's going to be very, very lucrative by the time you're done with it. But there's one death benefit to it. There's one building. The flip side, and this is where it depends on the person. The flip side is you can have several policies, several buildings. The banking power contained within them is not as great, but they do exactly the same thing. They're a bank. They're just not, banking power isn't as great. But what comes with each one of those is their own respective death benefit. There's their own separate policy, so there's a separate death benefit that comes with each one. So tying this into a real life example, my family has 5 policies. So rather than Dave building my individual policy to be giant, we spread what we put into policies across me, my wife Jess, and then our 3 kids. So we have 5 policies. It's a little more to manage, but with that, each one of us is protected, heaven forbid anything happens to us. It also provides my kids some legacy wealth building in that the policies, they are the insured. So hopefully I pass a long time before they do. That policy is then going to be in their ownership. And then the beneficiary is going to be my grandkids. But we started something that will hopefully grow for 50, 60 years. That death benefit is going to be rather large, along with the cash value that's able to be used. So if my kids want to start a business or put a down payment on a house, heard a great story the other day. A grandpa set one of these up for her granddaughter, and she was able to purchase her first house outright with the cash value. And he didn't put a whole, I think he started $20,000 a year, which is a substantial amount of money. But in today's day and age, she just purchased this house. Today's day and age, houses are crazy expensive. She was able to leverage the cash value that was in that thing to buy her first house outright. So rather than pay bank interest, principal and interest over the course of 30 years, typical mortgage, she can pay herself back now. But she has a house free and clear from any bank lien, anything. It's hers. Well, her and her husband's, they bought it together after they got married. But that's a cool example of what we're hoping to do for our kids. But another reason why we spread out what we put into our policies across five. So our respective family has five bank buildings. To go back to my example, I'll use Mike because we've shared it on the podcast before. His family has 15. I always get the number wrong. I'm pretty confident it's 15 because he always gets mad at me. Not really, but he's like, Dave, you got to remember. So I think they have 15 policies. Again, you started for different reasons, but with each respective policy comes a respective death benefit. So rather than one giant policy, 15 death benefits can pay out, and it allows you some flexibility. So where that line is drawn is absolutely dependent on the individual. But this is the discussion that I want to bring about the podcast that I often have with clients when they catch that realization of how much money can I run through these. Usually we'll start with, a $10,000 a year policy. And then once that they realize that money's staying in the ledger and I'm spending it anyway, what can I do to run my mortgage through this thing? Let's start a smaller policy, but I want to capture my mortgage. Well, I'm going to go buy a car. What would that look like? And having those discussions is what Mike and I like to do. And we can build you another policy. You don't have to use the same one. Keep funding that one, but now let's run something else through. But now you have two respective death benefits. So the whole goal in this is just to bring up ideas. It's to foster some thought, hopefully breed some questions. A weird way to say that. I always come up with weird stuff on this podcast. Ask questions. Hopefully that sparks something in your brain. Call us if you want more detail. I mentioned this last podcast. We're getting feedback that people want us to go into more detail. We're gonna try, but we need you to understand that this is a lot. These policies are very dependent on the individual, and the best way to go into detail, respective to your questions, is to have you ask them. We can't read minds. We can't cover everything. Um, Call us. Give us an email. We want to talk with you. And again, I think I said it last time too. Pretty normal dudes love to have a conversation with anybody and everybody. So, jumping back, hopefully that does foster some thought, give some ideas, maybe provides an explanation to a question you're already wondering. That would be that cat's me out. That'd be pretty cool if you're already thinking that and we got an answer. So maybe I can read minds. If they'll let me know if we're on the same wavelength. But next week, like I said, Mike's gonna be back. I just wanted to this is kind of a punt, but it's something I think is relevant. So hopefully I found that balance in this week's episode. So going through everything again, like, subscribe. Our phone number is 507-205-2284. Dave at familybankingsolutions.com. Shoot Mike an email, Mike at familybankingsolutions.com. Ask for some puppy pictures. I'm sure they're going to be cute. They got some good looking dogs, and the puppies they can't be far off. And Sweet Breath is the best anyway. So shoot him, ask him for some pictures. My guess is he'd be happy to share those with you. Maybe tell him congratulations. I tease him. I've already mentioned it. He's a dog grandfather. He doesn't like doesn't like that term. So lovingly, maybe tell him congratulations for being a dog grandpa. I don't know. But give us a shout, give us a call. We'd be happy to talk with you. All right. Thanks for listening. And we'll hopefully get to catch you on the next episode.